You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello and welcome to another amazing adventure on Business Wealth Impact. Today we have Arias WebsterBerry, who is a successful digital marketing strategist and founder of WebsterBerry Marketing, Ignite Funnels, and Launch Ignition AI. With over a decade of experience, he's helped generate over $112 million in revenue for clients through automation and marketing strategies. He's also written a book called Content Canon and aims to empower 1,000 entrepreneurs by 2026. Welcome, Arias.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So the reason why, because we know each other a little bit, and the reason why I really wanted to have you on the show was you interested me in certain things that you speak about. And one of them is not in my podcast. First of all, I'm fascinated by your life story. We'll get into that in a bit. But you talk a lot about one of my favorite subjects, and that is risk mitigation and also adaptability. And you have this thing, adapt or die. Tell us a little more about those two philosophies that you hold.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to entrepreneurship, you only hear the success stories, right? You hear the Cinderella, rags to riches. I had this idea, thunderbolt, lightning bolt hit, and, I immediately ran out. I got started. 3 months later, I was a millionaire and, I bought a beach house. And that's not the reality, right? For most entrepreneurs, it's not a straight, shot to the top of the mountain. You might circle the base a couple times and, deviate. So I think it's important for you to realize that this thing called entrepreneurship is littered with all kinds of unforeseen potholes, landmines, and you need to set yourself up for success by preparing for the risk that is entrepreneurship. And in my world, you have to learn to adapt. And if you're not adapting, you're going to die, right? And when I say die, I mean, you're either going to lose your business, you may lose a spouse, you may lose a relationship, you may lose your money, you might have to file for bankruptcy. There's a lot of things that can come from you not having the ability to be nimble and adapt so that you can make sure you stay on track.
Right. To adapt and be adept. Okay. This is very true. If we do not adapt to situations, we're stuck. So what about the risk mitigation part? I'm really into risk mitigation. However, there is a weird dichotomy of mitigating risk, i.e. reducing risk, and you're analyzing the risk and making sure that you reduced it. And there's also taking risk, because risk mitigation is not about not risking, not investing. And I think there is a huge misunderstanding about what risk mitigation is and the fact you need to take risks. So can you explain that to everybody and tell everybody how you've dealt with that in your business?
Yeah, we live in such fast-paced times. You look about a couple years ago, a lot of platforms didn't exist. AI wasn't a thing. There's a lot of things that are constantly changing, and it's affecting really all industries. So that being said, you very much have to keep your ear to the ground, right? But you have to know when it's acceptable for you to take a leap of faith, and that's usually based on how much can you stand to lose. Right. If when it comes to money, right, they always say never loan is more than you can lose. Right. Never gamble as much as you can lose. Never invest any more than you can stand to lose. And business is the same, whether that's the amount of time that you're investing, whether that's the amount of money that you're investing, or the amount of information that you're going to give out, the piece of yourself that you're going to give. You really need to ascertain if you can afford, if everything went absolute to crap, can you stand not getting it back and getting nothing out of it? And that's typically the way I assess, especially when I'm, I have multiple businesses. When I decide to get into a business, if I put $100,000 in and a year from now I get zero, am I going to go to pieces? And if I'm not, then that's an acceptable amount of risk for me.
Mm.
Everyone doesn't have the same risk tolerance. You may buckle at the loss of $1,000, and that's okay. But that's the first thing you need to sit and have a conversation with yourself, and most likely your spouse, about how much you're willing to lose in this endeavor. And if you can't stand to lose, you probably shouldn't get started.
Okay, great. Now, personally, if somebody can't afford to lose $1,000 building a business that they want to make into $1 million business, we have a problem on our hands.
Absolutely.
There's a problem of reality check. So you and I both know, because we've been in business a while, that there is a number we need to invest in our businesses or we will not grow. We actually
Uh-huh.
have a budget. I'm sure you do, I do, where the budget is what we are actually reinvesting into the business on ourselves, coaching something, some services, or we know we are not adapting. We are staying stagnant. Okay. And we all know that you have to, and some people don't get that. They're like, but I already paid for a coach once. Yes. It's not a one-time deal. And I already
Right.
paid for that piece of software once. And, so they have this, and it's amateur, but they're not their fault. It's just not knowing,
Uh-huh.
right? So there's zero judgment. It's, they don't understand that there are certain things they need to learn about business. And one of them is, it's just the law of the universe. You reap what you sow. You can't grow something unless you're investing. So can you explain to people how to actually mitigate risk, but also invest? And again, you're right. If they can't lose $1,000, that is not somebody that's really serious about building what they say they want to make $1 million business. Now, we all know you want to build $1 million, you're going to there is a number attached to what
Uh-huh.
you invest to make a million. And it's not always the same, but we know, you're going to at least have to invest 10, 30, 40K at least, right?
At
Something like
least.
that.
At
At
least.
least. Although I must say I was pretty lucky. I think at the beginning, well, no, I'd already invested, but I probably got to 1 million and I'd only invested about 15K. That was a miracle,
Mm-hmm.
a
It's very
miracle. But
rare.
then from there, I was heavily investing, like heavy investing. So what's your take on that? How to balance all that so people aren't confused?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is one, having a plan. It baffles me. I walk into some very large companies and they are flying by the seat of their pants. I'm sitting in rooms with companies that are making $100 million and they don't have a marketing plan, right? Which just
Wow.
I don't know, it floors me. So first off, start with a plan. And it doesn't need to be super elaborate, but you need to have some core tenets, right? Like, hey, this is my goal and I'm going to backtrack my way to where I currently am, right? And take a reasonable amount of time to figure out how you can attach a dollar amount to every step in that plan. I think that's the other part, right? They come up with all these lofty goals and ideas, but they haven't sat down long enough to figure out how much it's actually going to cost to execute step one.
Mm,
And then, you get farther down the road and you didn't really take the time to figure that out. And now you run out of money. So the
mm,
plan is critical. Budgeting is critical. And then also, if you're going to get into entrepreneurship, I think it's extremely important for you to make sure that home is taken care of, right? You want to talk about
mm,
risk mitigation, right? Don't risk your home. Right now,
mm-mm,
there's so many stories of these entrepreneurs that literally bet the farm, or they mortgaged
mm,
their home, or they
mm,
sold their car. Right,
mm,
it's a very rare entrepreneur that has the right idea, the right timing, the talent to truly enter the market and knock it out of the park the first time.
mhm,
So, if you want to make sure that you have the wherewithal to go the distance, make sure that home is taken care of. It's a lot
mhm.
easier for you to
Yes.
push through the tough times when you can come home and the lights come on, right? You flip the switch, they come on, you can take a hot shower and lay in your bed, right? If you bet your house and
Right.
it leaves, you're screwed. So make sure that home is
Okay.
taken care of.
Now that's rare. That is a rare person now that's going to be that risky. I've seen more of the fear based going on in my world of not wanting to invest anything, but wanting to get there and not wanting to let go and get help. That's what I see. So I
Mm,
agree. Definitely make sure you're not risking, because that's gambling. That's called gambling, right?
hmm.
That's gambling.
Absolutely.
Okay. And also what you said, the idea is not good enough, folks. I have a million ideas a day. I do not act on them all. This is a myth that, oh, I had an idea. The idea is not the important thing. It is do you have a model that's going to make money and a plan for marketing it? That's really what matters. Okay,
Yeah.
this is great stuff. So let's move along. So, what are some ways you mitigated risk yourself?
The biggest one is what you mentioned earlier. For a long time, I was smart enough to just kind of figure it out. Right.
Mm,
I'm the type that if I see something and I stare at it long enough, I study it long enough, I can replicate it. Right.
mhm,
But the reality is that only gets you so far. There's a lot of smart people in the room that can figure out the inside of a box.
mhm.
However, what really took me to the next level and helped me kind of cut the amount of mistakes and errors was getting a coach, right? Finding
Right.
someone who was further down the road, who had been there, done that, had made the mistakes. And what I realized the first time I paid for a coach, expensive one, was that you're not paying for them to solve your problems. You're paying for them to shortcut you to the front of the line.
Right.
Problems are still going to arise, right? You're still going to have challenges. You're still going to have issues, but you now have someone to go to and say, hey, this is my problem. I don't know what to do. My hair's on fire. And they say, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. I've dealt with this before. Here's what we're going to do. Step one. And then
Mm,
step two, you're paying for their expertise to help you navigate something that could be fatal to your business. So
mhm.
I think that's one of the cheat codes. And for a lot of people, when you come across a good coach, the amount that they ask you for, might make your eyebrows go, to the back of your head. But if
Yeah.
if they're good, they're going to charge, right? Because they know what they're
Mhm,
worth, and the amount that
mhm.
you're going to pay them is going to pale in comparison with the amount of time and the money that they're going to save you in mistakes and bad decisions.
I feel like you just did a one big like advertisement for me and my coaching. Thank you. Okay. So, so basically we want to not be scared. We want to invest. We want to mitigate the risk by really weighing, okay, can I really is this going to make me not be able to pay my rent? Is it
Yeah.
going to don't use that. But if it's credit that you're going to be able to pay, then I mean, personally, I built my business on other people's money. I built my business using credit cards over and over and over again and moving the money. And I just became an engineer at moving money
Yep.
over, back, 0%, paying it off, shifting it. The only way I got where I was by engineering credit. Okay.
Hmm.
And people complain about credit. I was grateful because we would have been kicked out of our house if I didn't have credit. So
Yeah.
they go, I have so much credit debt. I'm like, I have credit debt and I'm so grateful that I can use it.
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the a cheat code, right? So many
Hmm.
people think of credit cards as this, evil thing, like, oh my God, I have to pay my credit card bill. But most
Mm.
people have spent their entire lives using credit cards for stuff that they really don't need, right?
Stuff. Yes.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, I want to go on a trip. I'm going to use my card. Oh, I'm out with
Mm.
friends. I'm going to use my card, right? A whole
Mhm.
bunch of meaningless stuff or
Mhm.
interactions that you may or may not remember, right?
Mm.
You're not going to regret using credit to build an asset, which a business is an
Mm.
asset, right? So if you're
Mm.
going to pay interest, if you're going to grab somebody else's money and promise to pay them back, it may as well be in service of something that's actually going to produce dividends and revenue for years to come, like a business.
Mhm.
So it's the difference. I don't even like calling it debt, right? Because it
Mm.
is, but when you use credit cards or credit for business, it's an investment, right? You've
Yes.
used your credibility to grab some money and dump it into something that you truly believe in are going to work at and that is going to pay dividends. It's an investment. And you may not be able to get some angel investor, some VC, with $1 million or, Mark Cuban to come in and bless your business. But you can get Visa to give you a $5,000 loan to, pay for some websites or something like that.
Absolutely. And there's also seven figures funding, which is very cheap loans. To me, when I get a credit card and I don't need to do this anymore, and I would move it to a 0%, I was thinking, oh my goodness, that's such cheap money, really.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like you, I never used my credit card to buy stuff.
Mm,
Oh, never. It was
yeah.
only ever as an investment. So I'm with you. I always was very grateful. Okay. Now, you have a very interesting story. What got you into entrepreneurship in the very first place?
I got it honestly. My first entrepreneurial venture was when I was 10. I would say I was 10 or 11. We were living in Houston at the time, and I walking home from school one day, there was a lot of dogs barking, and it was like middle of the day, and I said, "Man, I love dogs." I think I was obsessed with dogs at the time, and I was like, "Why are all these dogs behind these fences barking?" It just seems like I never see dogs out on the street, but I hear them barking all the time. And I came up with this idea of, well, why don't I go ask people if I can walk their dog, and they pay me like $5?
Hmm.
And I was like, that sounds brilliant. So I grabbed my cousin, we went out and we just started knocking on doors and asking them if we could walk their dogs for $5. And I think we made like, 30, $40, right, over the course of an evening. But that was my first venture into the entrepreneurial world. So, like I said, I got it honestly. And then from there, in high school, I started throwing parties. I continued that into college. And I got a break when I was in college. A friend of the family ran a record label. And he, around this time, social media was at its genesis. I'm going to date
Hmm.
myself. So, MySpace and Facebook were well, MySpace was on its way out and Facebook was on its way in. And he didn't really understand the social media thing, but he knew it was big and it was gaining some traction, especially with college students. So he basically employed me to get that going, and it went really well. Moved some numbers for his artist. He also had a promotions company, a nightlife promotions company. So he said, "Hey, you're doing well with the record label. Why don't you switch over and do this for this company, my promotions company?" And that took me down a whole path. We started with small events at nightclubs. We moved into small concerts, larger
Hmm.
concerts, and eventually we got into festivals. My largest festival that I was an executive producer for, which was the Hip Hop 101 Music and Arts Festival, with artists like Common, Janelle Monáe,
Hmm. Wow.
Ludacris, Mixmaster
Wow.
Mike from the Beastie Boys. It was a huge event. I think it was around 17,000 people. And I fell in love, and it was still an entrepreneurial thing because I had to kind of talk to the investors and get them to agree to take me on, and I made my contract and all these different things. But after that, the the bottom fell out of the economy. It was like 2009. And, all of my investors, I was in California at the time. It was hard hit. My investors,
Mm.
they were losing homes, they were losing businesses, they were losing cars.
Mm.
So, I stuck it out for a couple of years, and then I moved back to Texas. And
Hmm.
in that, I realized the thing that I enjoyed most was the marketing of it, right? When you start from early on with the parties and things, I was doing marketing, and in digital marketing, it really turned into a full thing. So I went to work for the largest digital marketing firm in the world at the time, which was called Reach Local. They've got a new name now. And that's where I really kind of got my bones. I learned digital marketing. I learned Google AdWords and, display ads and all those different things. So yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
wild that you got into that and were doing all these events. That sounds like you're at the right time at the right place as well.
Yeah. Ability to recognize an opportunity and run with it. So
Right. Fantastic. And that is where you helped bring in $112 million with your advertising.
yeah, so over the years, working with different customers, different clients, we've helped generate over $100 million for these clients, and it has been no walk in the park, that's for sure.
Mm.
We've made mistakes, but in that we've learned an enormous amount, and it's turned us into a very stable and steady company that has the ability to produce results. I personally think
Okay.
that you learn more from your losses than you do from your wins.
Okay. So tell us about the biggest mistake, because I think that it's important. Like you said, there's no walk in the park. I agree. I mean, every single business book that I read is just all about all the failures and how hard it really is. And we've
hmm
got to stop pretending. So, like, literally, almost every single one is about that. So, what was the biggest business failure you've had?
Biggest business failure. I had a few. I've started quite a few companies. I remember, actually, you want to talk about mitigating risk. So I had a little business where we helped people increase their following, their engagement through Instagram. We had built an algorithm that basically did follow, unfollow type of thing. We were really, really early on the trend. So it was real followers, organic and things like that. We had got up to a little over 1,000 customers, like monthly subscribers with that business. We were doing well. But what we did not do was diversify. We should have moved to other platforms. We should have come up with other solutions, but we were just making so much. It was going so well. We were helping so many people. We were like, well, this Instagram thing is great and people are happy. Let's just keep doing more of that. And then I remember getting several calls from clients saying, hey, I got a notification from Instagram saying that my account is suspended. And I'm like, oh man. And it was like one person. I was like, oh crap, let me stop what I'm doing, figure it out. By the 30th person, I was like, oh crap.
Oh no.
And then it got to 100 and I'm like, what is happening? Right. I'm having a meltdown. Comes to find out that Instagram had changed their terms of service.
Yes.
They had also switched their algorithm and it made it more sensitive to automated activity. And that really, it just tanked our business, right?
Wow. Did you lose all 100,000 people's accounts or did you cut it off before that happened?
It was 1,000, but I mean, we stopped, we didn't lose their accounts. I think out of all of those, it was only one person who permanently got shut down, but that was
thank goodness
because of things that they were doing outside of us.
Anyway, yes.
Yeah. But, they were able to get their accounts back. But the thing that I learned was that you have to diversify. If we had figured out other services on other platforms or, maybe pivoted them into web development or email marketing or text marketing, we could have said, hey, we're no longer offering this service, but we can keep your other services, right?
Yes.
We wouldn't have had to shut down that whole business. And, at that point, I want to say we were charging like maybe like $200 a month. Yeah, I think we were charging like $200 a month. Yeah, times 1,000 people. So it's like 200 grand, a month.
Wow.
And, to shut that down in the period of like 90 days, that was crushing, right? It's like $600,000 that evaporated overnight.
Exactly.
So that was tough. It was a lot. But it taught me that one, you have to pay attention to your market. Like you have to be obsessed with what's happening in your industry and your market. And if you're dealing on another platform, you absolutely have to be tapped in. You'd probably need to go make friends with someone at that platform. If you, if you're in an industry that's heavily regulated by the government, you should make nice with the regulators. Take them to lunch, go play golf, whatever, right? So that they can give you a tip. You really need to be dialed in and you need to make sure that you're always looking for the next thing so that you can, weather any storm.
Great. So are you doing that now for your clients? Did you make connections with all the different like Facebook and all these places you're playing? Did you make connections so you can advocate for your clients?
Absolutely. So we go to a few different social media retreats every year where a lot of these guys hang out. I invite them here whenever we're doing events. Actually, if any of you are listening, our newest client is in the travel space. So we are working out some deals to kind of have them come run with us out there. You really just need to be immersed in your industry, top to bottom, right? The other side of that is not just the top, but the bottom, right? So you may be thinking, oh, I only deal with executives and people who are, high level, this, that, and the other thing. But there's just as much danger from some kid who's sitting in his mom's basement with a computer coming up with the next thing that's going to turn your industry upside down, right?
Yeah.
You need to pay attention to that guy who, is starting to pop up on someone's podcast or, his name is being whispered by a few people as having that new thing. Don't dismiss it so quickly. Who was it? Barnes and Noble laughed Jeff Bezos out of the boardroom when they signed his deal, because it was such a crappy deal. He was basically losing money to service them and sell books online. But, we know how that story ended. He's definitely the one laughing.
Jeff Bezos was unusual because he really, truly had a long game. Like, it was a long game, and his investors didn't understand that long game at all.
But he was that guy that nobody cared about. They were laughing.
Right.
He was a nobody working out of his garage, right?
Yeah, I'm going to really age myself out. I remember when Amazon only sold books.
Books, yeah, that was all they did.
I remember that. My boss went and he said, "So where did you get those?" And he said, "Oh, I ordered it on the site called Amazon. They sell books and they deliver them to you." I said, "How novel."
Right.
So that was like 1998, I believe. Well, listen, this has been great. Thank you for riffing on all this. Arias, what's one thing that if somebody met you once and they were never going to see you again, and you met and you said, "Hey man, give me some advice," what would you tell them about life and business?
Life and business. In life, I would say it's never as bad as you think it is, and it's never as good as you think it is. The goal is to stay in the middle. Your highest highs are not as high as you think they are. Your lowest lows are not as low as you think that they are. Someone's always has it better. Someone always has it worse. And if you're still breathing, you can weather it. I've faced an enormous amount of adversity in my life, from having a parent pass violently, from police violence in public, from parents going to jail, struggling with drug addiction, homelessness, all of these different things. And I stand here today a stronger person as a result of it. So it's never as bad as you think it is. And conversely, you may have won a Super Bowl. You may have landed your dream job. You may have married your dream girl, right? It's never as good as you think it is, right? Things can change so quickly. There are new heights. There are new things that you can achieve. You have to keep context no matter where you are in your story, whether you're up or down. You need to keep going, keep moving forward. And if you do that, you'll look back on your life and you'll be proud.
So those are very wise words. And I'm very sorry to hear about a parent that passed away from police violence, you just said?
Yeah. My dad was a very tall, very charismatic, good looking guy, tall, dark, handsome. He was a star basketball player who went to Rice on a scholarship. And this was around the 80s where, cocaine and crack and all these different things were being flooded into the country, which we later found out was by the U.S. government. But that's another story. But he got caught up in that. And, he lost his scholarship. He ended up coming back to Dallas. And he struggled with addiction. He struggled with the things that come with addiction, theft and criminality and being in an area and around people who are also caught up in that life. And he struggled with that for, I want to say probably the better part of 15 years, 14 to 15 years. And it finally caught up with him. He was tragically slain on the side of the road here in Dallas on the 75 freeway. A run-in with the police. The circumstances surrounding it are fuzzy at best. He had a heart attack, as they say. But how is it that you have a heart attack with 2 to 3 police officers on the side of the road when you've been healthy your entire life? So it was that. But I was a freshman in high school. I was in a different state. We were living in California. And it was tough, being a teenager trying to make this transition from, middle school to high school, the transition from kid to young man. And, coming to the realization that the person that's supposed to help guide you and chaperone you through this transition into manhood isn't going to be there. It was tough, and I was angry a lot. I lashed out. My grades weren't the best. They were actually consistently pretty
Mhm.
bad. Well, I won't say horrible, that they were mid and kind of below. But I didn't have the interest in these
Mm.
things. But actually, one of the things that came out of that, my disinterest in my curriculum, was I picked up the book Rich Dad Poor
Mhm.
Dad. I want to say it's probably 15 or 16. My pastor at the time, Pastor Timothy J. Winters, God rest his soul, he started a book store at our
Mm.
church, and he said, "Hey, this book absolutely changed my life. If you want to figure out how to be a millionaire and be wealthy, you need to read this book." And he vowed that he would preach on money at least once a
Hmm.
month. And I wasn't listening to anything in that sermon, but I do remember him saying
Mhm.
that. And I remember as soon as he finished, I begged my mom to take me to the bookstore that was on site, and we bought that book.
Mm.
And I was just absorbed. I took it
Mhm.
everywhere. In school, I'm supposed to be learning Spanish. I'm reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. And little did I know that it would really shape the way I approach business. It shaped the way I approach finance. It just shaped me.
Mm.
It gave me some glimmer of hope in this really crappy situation that I had found myself in at a very critical point in
Mm.
life.
So, you're a testimony to somebody just prevailing. You had all of that to deal with. You're a successful, not angry person who's just, doing his best. So, God bless you, because a lot of people will not get over that. And, you were saying before, it's like nobody cares about your sob story, right?
Yeah, no one cares. No one cares, my dad passing or, my mom, having domestic violence issues and ending up in jail and,
Mm.
us being homeless, all these different things. No one really cares, unless you win, right?
Mm.
No one wants to watch the movie where, you meet adversity and then you meet adversity and then you meet adversity and
And then
then
you
you
die.
just say, right, I'm going to off myself or, it only counts if you're able to see yourself through to the other side and become a winner.
Right.
And, one of the things my mom always says to me is the one prayer that she had consistently is that, put me through trial, take me through the fire, but don't break my spirit. She says that to me all
Mm.
the time. And she's just
Mm.
extremely grateful that through all the things that I've been through, I never lost that hope. My spirit
Mm.
was still strong. I was still willing to get up and try again.
Mm.
Um, and I think that is honestly the most predictable quality of success in business, especially with entrepreneurs, right?
Mm.
You have no idea what's going to happen in business. You don't know what's going to happen in your industry or if a global pandemic is going to shut down everything
Mhm.
and just screw your business, 6 ways from Sunday. But you do have the ability to control whether you get up and try again.
This is
And
very
that's
true.
something that I have always kept dear. And I've had a lot of failures, but I never let it knock me down and keep me down.
Well, there you have it. Words to live by, because you've been through a lot. And as we were saying, there's always somebody worse off. There's always, no matter how bad. That was pretty bad. You prevailed, successful business, a good person. God bless you. So thank you, Arias, for being on this podcast today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And also thank you for listening to this episode. Please subscribe, comment. Arias, we will have his website in the show notes. Go take a look there if you want to reach out to him. And we'll see you on the next one. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jean Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jean Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.